Welcome to Friday Morning Dharma. Let's go ahead and settle in for some meditation. The mountain is silent. The mountain is still. The mountain is ancient. The mountain is enlightened. Allow yourself to be grounded, stable, balanced. Tap into your ancient wisdom awareness. No judgment, no labeling, no comparing, no expectation. Moment, moment by moment, phenomena are undergoing change. It's not that things change or that things will change. It's that things are in the process of changing moment by moment by moment. The people sitting here in meditation in this moment are not the same as the people who entered the meditation space a few moments ago. Meditation on impermanence is an extremely powerful method for overcoming the deluded and painful mind of desirous attachment. That's because if you recognize that your object of meditation is in the process of changing, dissolving, and disappearing, that means that the basis for the mind of desirous attachment is also necessarily changing, dissolving, and disappearing. Please know this truth. Please know this truth about wisdom realizing impermanence. If you perfect your practice of wisdom realizing impermanence, you will never suffer again in this lifetime. A monk once made the following statement. He said, "In my 20 years of wearing the robes of an ordained monk, I have learned this one fact. All that arises ceases. This I know." So now I'd like you to please just rest in the wisdom that recognizes, that knows the impermanence of phenomena. All that arises ceases. Please rest peacefully in this truth. All that arises ceases. Become one with this truth. Thoroughly examine mundane things or things of the world. If you do, you will see that none of them persist. None of them are capable of permanence. And in that sense, they are like dreams and magical illusions. Dreams and magical illusions are meaningless. Therefore, generate renunciation and abandon mundane concerns. Now, very gently, please redirect your awareness. Become aware again of this collection of parts we've agreed to label physical body, and allow your breathing to become less shallow. And taking deeper and deeper breaths, become aware again of the garments of clothing resting on the surface of physical body. Become aware again of your surroundings inside the room that you're occupying. Deeper and deeper breaths, and become aware again of the world that exists outside of the room that you're occupying. We dedicate all of the merit from this morning's meditation and Dharma talk to world peace. May leaders of countries who are at odds with one another soon come to recognize that nothing is accomplished with minds of anger. Instead, may they resolve their differences with minds of patient acceptance, empathy, compassion, and wisdom. And may we individually make the greatest contribution to world peace we can by resolving differences in our own lives using minds of patient acceptance, empathy, compassion, and wisdom. Completely fill up your belly and lungs with air. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and bring your meditation to an end. Welcome back. So we are in the chapter in the text that we're reading together, studying together, called "In Love with the World." We're in the chapter called "Impermanence and Death," one of the cornerstones of Buddhist view, kind of a cornerstone that transcends Buddhist view. It's just so fundamental and so profoundly important. In Monday's class, I offered some thoughts on impermanence and the state of the world, the state of this country, to be exact. And if you found some of the points that I made in that teaching to be intense, it's totally understandable. Totally understandable. It was, applying wisdom, realizing impermanence to some pretty intense kind of radical situations. What some people might consider intense and radical. Some people think things are going great in the country. Really, really, there are some people that believe absolutely that things are going exactly the way that they should go. Um, it's easier for us, I think, for most people, it's easier for us to contemplate and meditate on the impermanence of things like, things that maybe are less consequential, or what we might regard as being less consequential. Yeah, it's easier to meditate on the impermanence of my car than it is on democracy, the impermanence of democracy, or the impermanence of the weather. Easier to meditate on the impermanence of weather than it is the impermanence of the country called the United States of America. Um, Easier to meditate even more on my body, than it is, you know, yeah, stable government, or yeah, whether you consider it to be stable or not right now, it is absolutely impermanent. And some of the things that are going on with the country for some might be difficult objects of meditation for realizing wisdom, realizing impermanence. But here we are, right? And yeah, so I want you to know that my greatest wish for these classes that we hold, these meditations, and the Dharma talks that I give, my greatest wish is for you to make Dharma, Dharma, again, for those with Dharma, 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 translated more or less as wisdom teachings that really transcend any religious doctrine, any spiritual doctrine. My greatest wish is for you to make Dharma, the practice of Dharma, the most important thing in your life. Transcends everything. I hope. I hope it can reach that place for you. I was rereading a book that's very dear to me a couple of mornings ago. It's called Great Disciples of the Buddha. And the Buddha's foremost disciple was a monk named Shariputra. Shariputra. He became regarded by the Sangha back in those days, 2,600 years ago. He was regarded in terms of insight and wisdom and the example that he presented, his practice of moral discipline. He was regarded as being second only to the Buddha himself, pretty much universally regarded as being an enlightened being, no different from Shakyamuni Buddha, and just held in very, very high regard. Shariputra is his name, was his name, is his name. And the part of the story about Shariputra that I was reading was the value that he placed on being introduced to Dharma. He always deferred to the monk who first introduced him to the Dharma, to Buddha, and who in turn passed the Dharma along to Shariputra. Even though Shariputra was regarded as being second only to the Buddha himself, Shariputra always deferred to this monk who introduced him, insisted that he pass through the door first. Like they did crazy sort of like courtesies back in those days, removed the dust from their feet and stuff like that. Shariputra did this to this monk, even though he was regarded by others, not to Shariputra, but to others as being, junior or kind of subordinate to him. Shariputra would seat himself, he would know where this monk was and seat himself in a room or in meditation such that he was facing the direction of this monk. So precious was this introduction to Shariputra that he did these things. And this is not an appeal to the extent I'm the one who's introducing you to Dharma. Don't do any of that stuff. That's not where this is going, okay? It may be that for you to get to a place where Dharma is the most important thing in your life, it may take pacifying your thinking mind, and that's understandable. The thinking mind, like, almost always needs to be pacified, or at least until we reach a certain point in our practice, our thinking mind needs to be pacified because, we might be thinking, is that true? Is Dharma really the most important thing? Is it really that valuable? I don't know. There doubts can arise, and doubts can be good. Doubts can be beneficial. And there's something, believe it or not, that called doubts tending toward truth and doubt trending toward doubt trending toward wisdom and doubt trending toward delusion. So there's a place for doubts and questions and contemplation to the extent it moves us to a higher wisdom ground. So after Monday's class, we talked, remember, on Monday, I think it was Monday, or maybe it was the Friday before, we talked about, remember, the 6 realms and samsara and karma. And a student asked me after class, she said, is samsara really a thing? And it was a great question. Is samsara really a thing? Maybe the question was based in doubt. It's okay if it was. Is samsara a thing? The answer is yes and no. Yes and no. Remember in class when I talked about samsara being samsara, this confused state of existence, this confusion that exists as a result of us misperceiving the way in which the world around us really exists. Remember me talking about this, saying that we think that the world exists separately, independently from us and our mind and the experience that we're having. The world is out there and I'm here, and they're independent of each other, dualistic view, right? Remember me saying that that's completely, and this isn't anything original. The sutras say that it's exactly the opposite. The world exists in dependence upon our mind. We create the world with our mind. And this is going to be a little bit radical for some, but it's really, really important. Not only do we create the world with our mind, we create everything in the world with our mind, including samsara, including karma, including the six realms. So we might be wondering, well, if it's sort of like created from our mind and doesn't have inherent existence from its own side, like what's the point of that? Like it almost seems like a fabrication that we're buying into. We're creating karma and samsara with our mind, yet we're saying things like the inescapable truths of actions and effects. Sometimes the expression is used, the iron chains of karma. The iron chains of karma. So there are statements like that, yet at the same time, we're creating karma with our mind. Can't we just like uncreate karma and be free from it? Isn't that like allowed? Well, the answer is kind of yes. The answer is kind of yes, we can do that. It's almost like we need to create with our mind. We need to make up practices. This is really, really subtle, but really important, you guys. So please lock in on this. Please. With our mind, maybe we don't make up these practices, but we validate them, like the laws of actions and effects, karma. But we use our practice of karma and our recognition of samsara to free us from karma and samsara, right? It's by basically like making up practices that we can liberate ourselves. It's like making up this notion of samsara and like regarding it as though it's a thing, okay? Regarding samsara as being a thing that is created by our karma, by regarding these things as things, we can liberate ourselves from these things, move up and off the karmic wheel, escape from the prison of samsara. It's subtle and abstract, but really important. I'm sure you've heard in like some firefighters will, if they have a really intense fire, they'll use fire, another form of fire, to put out that fire, right? Kind of the same thing with Dharma. It doesn't have, like anything else, it doesn't have inherent independent existence from its own side. We create it with our minds, but it's through these mind created practices that we come to see that it is free of any independent inherent qualities. Why am I talking about this? Again, hopefully to pacify doubts that you may have or questions that you may have about the validity and reliability of these practices and these views that will ultimately help you get up and off of the karmic wheel to escape from the prison of samsara, mind made though it may be. If we regard it as a thing, it will ultimately serve as a vehicle through which we can attain liberation, permanent liberation from all forms of suffering. And, you know, political instability, governmental instability, existential instability of countries and stuff, we no longer suffer from it. It's amazing. It's an amazing set of teachings and practices. And my greatest wish is for you to get to a place where Dharma is the most important thing in your life. By the way, last thing I'll say, after reading that story about Shariputra, I immediately wrote an email to my very first teacher who introduced me to the Dharma and said, thank you, 1,000 times, thank you. So there it is, you guys. No Medicine Buddha meditation tomorrow morning. I'm going to be out of town, but we'll get together again on Monday. Have a great weekend, you guys.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
You're most welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. Bye.
Bye, everybody.